Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Today I want to take a quick look at the 5th episode of Better Call Saul Season 4. A friendly warning to all. If you aren't caught up on all of Better Call Saul and all of Breaking Bad, there will be spoilers in this video. So viewers, please be warned.
Back in the day, I would have spotted those low-rent little skeeves from a mile away, and they would have known not to roll me.
Guys, you had your chance. I'm all sold out.
Give me your money.
I'm a narc, remember?
Yeah, how would they have known that?
I don't know. Well,
Oh, we saw you got cash. Hand it over.
Nice try. Look, Pee-wee, Scooter, Skippy, it was very good to meet you boys.
because back then, I guess I was one of them.
Well, those days are over.
Things begin with papers being shredded, and holy shit, it's Saul Goodman from the Breaking Bad timeline. We get to see Saul's final panic-driven moments prior to him calling our favorite vacuum repairman, Ed. And this sequence included an unceremonious parting of ways between Saul and his disgruntled yet loyal assistant, Francesca. Saul makes the call, and this moment symbolizes the fall of his criminal lawyer enterprise. Jimmy's stellar artwork is doing little to attract customers, and Jimmy looks bored. Finally, a potential customer pulls up, and Jimmy is immediately on the hustle pretending he's busy with this new hot product. So Jimmy gives the guy his pitch, and the guy buys into it hook, line, and sinker, and he leaves with a handful of phones.
I'll tell you what I do. I practice something we call information hygiene.
A shady-looking character steps off a bus, and he's looking for a car. He finds it, reaches in, and receives a call from Mike. Mike gives the guy instructions and tells the guy to drive to a certain point, to place a hood over his head, and then Mike picks the guy up for a long and bumpy, sometimes off-road trip. Mike takes the shady fella to the laundromat, and Mike vets him on building the secret meth lab. But this guy doesn't seem very thorough, and neither Mike nor Gus is impressed.
That's what I thought. Thank you for your time.
Mike drops the dude back off, still dressed in the hood, and they left him a plane ticket home. Kim is apparently defending a troubled youth, and she loans him a tie before strong-arming the prosecutor for a deal. Right from the get-go, she seemed to have this guy by the balls, but he inexplicably prolongs Kim's schooling, and she stands firm before he ultimately gives in and submits to her demands. The troubled youth, however, is unimpressed.
I'm gonna have a probation officer on my ass for 4 months.
You will keep your nose clean. You understand? Because if you don't, you will go to jail.
Jimmy wants to watch Dr. Zhivago, but Kim has Mesa Verde work and tells him to watch it himself. He begins watching, but Jimmy seems uncomfortable and he tells Kim he has work obligations, despite the late hour. Jimmy heads to the office, and he purchases a shitload of phones that he takes for himself. Jimmy heads to the laundromat and he tries pitching phones to 3 young punks, but they think he's a narc. So Jimmy grabs a snappy outfit and he finds his way to the doghouse. Jimmy is peddling phones out of the trunk of his car, and his broken down customers absolutely love Jimmy. Jimmy is selling phones left and right, and a lot of people buying these phones look like they will also be buying Walter's signature blue product a few years down the road. A biker gang drives up, and Jimmy looks a little nervous at first, but Jimmy's power of bonding with broken downs can never be underestimated.
That private conversations are few and far between. The man is always listening on those landlines, so there is a simple solution.
How much?
Jimmy celebrates his big sale with a hot dog, and when he goes back to his car, he's approached by the 3 young punks from earlier, and they beat the shit out of Jimmy and steal all of his money. Poor Jimmy couldn't even finish his hot dog. Kim is woken up by the sound of running water, and she sees that Jimmy is all beat up. Jimmy explains that he was mugged at the doghouse, and Kim, wounded herself, does her best to tend to Jimmy. Jimmy eventually tells Kim that he plans to see the shrink she suggested to him. Jimmy removes the paint job and it looks like quite the daunting task. Kim has another troubled client named Denise, and Kim is trying to get Denise to go to court. So Kim coaxes her along, and she seems deep in the midst of some personal crusade of saving those who need saving before it's too late. Kim gets a call from Paige at Mesa Verde, but Kim dismisses them in favor of Denise. When Kim finally shows up at Mesa Verde, they are none too happy, and it appears that Kim actually sabotaged things deliberately. Mike is in the process of vetting another candidate, and this one is getting a little carsick. But once he gets where he's going and clears his head, this guy proves to be far more thorough than the shady-looking guy from earlier. This new candidate is mighty diligent, and he pays proper attention to all the finer details. Mike likes this. Gus likes this too. So much so that he busts out to greet the new candidate in person.
It's impossible. Dangerous, difficult, and very, very expensive. Not quite impossible.
Gustavo Fring.
Jimmy runs into Howard in the men's room at the courthouse, and Howard is a complete mess. Howard's suffering from insomnia, and he is still clearly overcome with guilt regarding Chuck's suicide. Jimmy looks happy about this at first. Jimmy suggests that Howard go and see someone, and he's actually pitching Kim's suggestion to him. But Howard is already seeing someone. Howard heads to court, and Jimmy flushes the name Kim provided to him. Jimmy has his PPD review, he did his community service, he has a new job, his fees are up to date, and Jimmy fully intends to return to practicing law just as soon as he's permitted to do so. But something tells me when Jimmy returns, it won't be as Jimmy.
Everything will be better. I'm going to have more clients. I'm going to win more cases. I'm going to be a damn good lawyer, and people are going to know about it.
Okay.
All in all, I thought it was a terrific episode. The stuff with Mike doing a big job and vetting the excavating overseer brings the relationship with Gus and Mike much closer to present form. And the very act of excavating the meth lab symbolizes that well. But meanwhile, it simultaneously becomes more difficult to see what path the relationship between Mike and Jimmy takes from here. The fact that this episode opened on a flashback has me believing our favorite vacuum repairman, Ed will be coming into play in some form or another sooner or later. Will that be how Nacho ultimately escapes? It feels a little inevitable that Jimmy and Nacho would cross paths. And as far as criminals go, Nacho is a pretty likable guy. So the idea of him escaping his current predicament for a fresh start, that's something that has a lot of appeal. I'm not sure if that's how it will play out, but somehow or another, something has to happen where Jimmy and Mike's paths become more closely intertwined. However that winds up happening, it's probably clear to Gus right now that Mike is a far bigger asset than the likes of Tyrus and Victor. But the biggest moments from this episode involve Jimmy and Kim. While Kim is playing the Good Samaritan lawyer by day, Jimmy is peddling phones to lowlives by night. It's becoming easier and easier for Jimmy to lie to Kim. And really, it's becoming easier and easier for both of them to lie to one another by omission. Kim appears to be deliberately sabotaging her alliance with Mesa Verde. She seems more content helping those on the brink of no return as some sort of moral savior. Probably because on some level she knows Jimmy has fallen too far at this point. But Kim is bound to get discouraged by this approach. That was abundantly obvious when the troubled youth complained after she landed him a deal that kept him out of jail. Kim is going to learn this lesson. And Jimmy kind of experienced his version of this when after he had such a successful night selling phones to the criminal element, he gets his ass kicked and robbed by 3 punks. I think the entire episode could be summed up in these little scenes here.
In 9 months and 24 days, I will get my law license back. My partner and I
would have spotted those low-rent little skeeves from a mile away, and they would have known not to roll me.
It'll be like it was, but bigger and better.
Yeah, how would they have known that?
Everything will be better. I'm going to have more clients. I'm going to win more cases. I'm going to be a damn good lawyer.
Because back then, I guess I was one of them.
Well, Those days are over.
Jimmy is making a drastic shift here. He's embracing his own love for a wide variety of scumbags, lowlives, and broken down degenerates. Jimmy can bond with these people like none other, and Jimmy is beginning to embrace this fact. Jimmy's own brother said something similar about this when he basically accused Jimmy of being a scumbag loser with no hope of correcting himself. Deep down, Jimmy believes this now himself. He may not have always believed it, but he does now, and as such, lying to Kim and telling her what she wants to hear, these are things that are becoming commonplace when it wasn't the case before. Maybe Jimmy did intend to see the shrink when he told her that, but seeing Howard suffer, that seemed to lift Jimmy's spirits at first, until he realized the shape Howard was in, and Howard revealed that he was already seeing his own shrink twice a week. At that very moment, Jimmy seemed to double down on his journey towards the dark side where he is surrounded by the criminal element. Kim wants to make a difference by saving some aspects of the criminal element, whereas Jimmy wants to make a difference by becoming one with the criminal element. This does not bode well for the Kim-Jimmy relationship. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night.
Because back then, I guess I was one of them.
Well, those days are over.
There's holmium and helium and hafnium and erbium and phosphorus and francium and fluorine and terbium and manganese and mercury and molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium and scandium and cerium and